anyone tell you that Mr. Brown did not get back with me. The complaint department in my office is let's put it this way. The complaint box in my office is always open. The lid is never shut. I'm here to sell myself to you. I am a wonderful communicator. I am not a person who will sit on a voicemail, sit on an email, sit on a citizen complaint in writing or verbally, who will not follow up with that. And I will follow up with that as humanly quickly as possible. All of us have been on the receiving end of not hearing back when we have sent an email to someone. There's nothing more frustrating for me because I hold myself to a higher degree. If you send me an email, rest assured, the moment I see that, whether it's on my cell phone, on my laptop, or back in the office, you're going to get an answer. Now, it may not be the answer you want to hear, which is the whole idea behind complaints, but it will be an answer that is reasoned and logical. My dealing with complaints is please come in and tell me what's on your heart. What is the problem? Let us try to find a solution together. The solution may not be what you want, but it may be the only solution available. What gets me excited is, I've already alluded to that, serving the public. I haven't been doing this for 36 years to get rich. I do it because I love what government means. I truly understand and love what government means. It's of, for, and by all of us. That's what gets me excited. That's what wants me to be in the office before anybody else shows up and be the last one turning the lights off.
Candidate Wilson.
In terms of economic development, what challenges do you think Dundee will face during the next decade? What projects should be considered to address these challenges while ensuring Dundee retains the small town atmosphere it is known for?
I've kind of touched on that a little bit previously. I'll try to circle back on it. Could you reiterate, Mr. Wilson, the question one more time, please?
Sure thing.
Economic development.
In terms of economic development, what challenges do you think Dundee will face during the next decade? And what projects should be considered to address these challenges while ensuring Dundee retains the small town atmosphere it is known for?
Well, because it's already been brought up, I surmise that we have infrastructure issues. You're going to have to cross that bridge at some point. That bridge means if your water and sanitary systems cannot handle another housing development or another major corporation wanting to build inside your boundaries, those are questions you must address and address them now. Now, the challenge is going out and finding the money to pay for that. Here's the problem. Where does that generally lie? On the backs of the taxpayers. State government may have grants and zero interest loans. I know in Ohio we do have that available. But those zero interest loans, even though there's zero interest, still have to be paid back. Now, they can be paid back over the course of 20 years, and maybe your operations and maintenance on your water and sewer systems can be boosted in order to compensate for that. But economic development isn't going to come unless you address the infrastructure issues, which evidently is already a problem. We've already heard something to that effect. Maintaining a small town atmosphere. We should never acquiesce just because somebody wants to come in and build a multi-billion dollar edifice. We should never give up what we believe to be true tradition. You know, you have a beautiful downtown. I had the luxury of at least riding back and forth before I pulled into the parking lot. You have a beautiful downtown. I anticipate that you never want that to go away, nor should you. If Walmart came in and said, we'd love to be right in the center of downtown, I would have to say, sorry, that's not going to cut it. Dundee wants to remain Dundee. Dundee also, I'll say it again and sound like a broken record, wants to be on the cutting edge. You want the next Stellantis to land on your tax base. Do you not? I know you do. My goal would be to work with the Economic Business Development Corporation, BDC, I think it is, in Monroe County. Is that Mr. Lake, I believe? Right?
Yes.
My goal would be to work hand in glove with the BDC in order to make sure that next Stellantis or Walmart or whatever it might be, Manger, when they land here with a footprint that still maintains the small town quality, even though servicing the bigger industry perspective. Well,
Okay. It wasn't mentioned in your introduction. So going back to your resume there, you have a short stay in as the township manager in Oakland. Can you elaborate on that?
I'm so glad you asked that question. There are a few things of which I am embarrassed in life. One of those is that short stint serving Oakland Township. In 2015, I had the opportunity. Let me back up one step. In Ohio, we have the capability to retire from a position and wait out 60 days and be rehired to that same position. I'd approached my county commissioners at the time, asking them if they would not consider that. They considered it, but they did not find it in my favor. I had 1 for and 2 against. Now, understand, those gentlemen are still my friends today. I never held that as anything other than a philosophical problem with the quote, double dipping. Having retirement income and then also securing the full-time employment. I took that job in Oakland Township out of spite. I'm embarrassed to say that, but I decided to show those guys that you won't go my way. Well, guess what I'm going to do? And I applied for that job and I was secured it. But I took the job for the wrong reasons. It had a nice price tag. I took it because I wanted to show them that this guy could still go out and be competitive in the government market. I'm embarrassed to say that I took it for the wrong reason. I took it for selfish gain as opposed to taking it to serve the public. And I had been forewarned by one of the board members there that you probably don't want to take this job because it's not going to fit your personality. And that person was exactly spot on. That is why I stayed for 6 months and then was able to secure the HR position in Huron County, Ohio. It was a difficult board to work with. And I had been pre-warned, but I still forged ahead, even though maybe in my gut I knew better. But out of spite, I took a job that I knew I should not have taken. Once I got there, I realized I shouldn't have taken it. Let's put it that way.
Okay. And what questions do you have for us?
Do you have another 2 hours? Oh, evidently not. Okay. Oh, there they are. Sorry. Got to put on the cheaters. What does this board, or maybe those that are running for positions on this board, anticipate, or what do you need to see out of your next village manager on day 1?
Well, on day one, what would happen is, when the day you choose to start, the day before our interim manager will be done. So on day one, you will need to hit the ground running. You will have to be fully on board as the village manager. Our interim manager will be gone at that point. There will be no overlap. So you are going to have to come in, you're gonna have to assess this organization. You're gonna have to make sure that financially, you know, all things are in place and that you have an understanding of finance.
Mhm.
You're gonna have to make sure that you work with a very competent, wonderful staff that we have, to make sure the day-to-day gets moving appropriately. You know, it's the Band-Aid will be ripped off on day one.
I love it. Nothing better than trial by fire.
Well, and because we have openings and positions, you know, that's gonna be one of the first
Sure.
things that you look at
Okay.
is the organizational structure. There will be provided guidance, of course, by the interim manager. He's going to lay out some suggestions, a plan, but he will not be here.
Okay. Second question would be, how does the board feel? What? Regarding job satisfaction of those that are truly doing the work, the clerks that are taking the tax dollars or the ticket money or whatever it might be. Assessing, can you give me your collective assessment of the job satisfaction level of those truly doing the work?
The people that remain are happy. We get a lot of feedback that they are happy, especially our front office staff. We have wonderful front office staff. We have a wonderful building department, and they're here and they're happy. I think our police officers, I haven't heard anything bad about our police officers being happy to be working here.
Number three, what is the level of interaction with this board and any of your collective bargaining units?
We don't work with our collective bargaining units, so that's typically the manager's role.
Okay.
We do have a union for our Department of Public Works currently. They have done a vote to try to bring for the police officers. So that
Do you know the outcome of that?
it's in process right
Okay.
now.
All right.
Everything's in process. We, on the council agenda for Tuesday, we're actually looking at hiring an employment attorney to help us with that process.
All right. Thank you. My door is always open. How open are your doors?
I think everybody here is pretty responsive.
Wonderful.
A lot of us come in and meet with, now interim manager, formerly our manager regularly. I know that people communicate by email a lot as well, depending on the time that they have.
There are a lot of bosses up here. What assurances do I have from this board or you that might be on this board? What assurances do I have that you will allow me to do my job other than the ordinance that I've read through, establishing the village manager's position, which says that this board will not interfere in the day-to-day operations? But what assurances do I have that that truly will not occur? Not just regarding personnel, but no, actually, I do want to take it down to that level. What assurances do I have that this board will not bother me when it comes to dealing with personnel other than your work?
Well, if you think we're a bother, then that's probably a problem. So let's start by saying that.
No.
But
Please understand, I'm not assuming that at all.
I think that as long as policies and procedures are followed, as long as our ordinances are followed, there should be no reason for us to come into your office and wonder anything you're doing, as long as policies and procedures are followed.
Wonderful, thank you.
That's why they're in place. You know?
Yes, I do. I do. But sometimes those lines can be blurred.
Mhm.
Let's be honest. We're all human. We all have opinions. Sometimes those lines can be blurred, but it's reassuring to me to know that you will let me operate as I should operate, if I'm fortunate enough to become your manager. I don't know that I have anything else pressing at this point.
Okay.
Can you share where the process will go from this point on?
So following all the interviews today, we are going to discuss the candidates and make a decision of what the next steps are in the hiring process. We do have a meeting on Tuesday. We would be expecting to want to select a candidate, you know, sooner if that is what everyone up here wants to do.
Understood.
If there's a clear candidate that everyone has consensus on, then we would, you know,
Okay.
obviously want to move forward.
Okay, wonderful. I have prepared and I'm willing to distribute, if you would deem it appropriate, a 180-day plan of action. If that's not necessary, or if you'd like me to email that to Barbie,
If you could give that to Greg, actually,
okay.
I would appreciate that on your behalf. You met Greg. So then our closing question is, what's your vision for the village of Dundee 5 years from now? And how do you fit into that vision?
Give me a little bit to chew on here. My village for Dundee, or my vision for the village of Dundee, would be to make you the most well-known small town in the United States of America. How will that be accomplished? Only as we work together as a team.
And how do you fit into that vision?
As a team member.
Okay. All right. We thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you
appreciate
very
it very
much.
much.
Okay. Don't go too far because we don't have a ton of. You can't go an hour. So can you?
I don't know. I was like, I'm not sure. The old parts are not. I was like, would you look at the
I think a little bit here.
Then she did. But I'm like.
I understand.
I don't want to end up in that.
Yeah, right,
Back.
right.
So, I love my coffee. I do love it, Vicky. I love it, but.
I am good.
Do you need anything?
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Do any of you need anything? Coffee, water?
You have a second? Yes, sir.
Ask for another copy. Oh, really? Okay, I just think it's. No,
He's too strong.
I don't think I was watching.
Right now. Managed hiring over years. Yeah.
Yeah, like, where did you say? I think we go to, yeah. It's called the Palmer Room. The Palmer. Yeah. And so it's a hotel room. It's on the street. So, I'm trying to just, so there's a couple bars. Sitting across the street with a little tea. But yeah, it's just more kind of numbers training and stuff. It'll probably start on Sunday. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
we're just gonna hang out. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Over here, so he goes, why are we supposed to do it? Yeah, paid. Yeah.
My grandson's birthday, but we're celebrating his birthday Sunday.
Okay.
But we're doing.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Because that's just gonna be, yeah. Grant usually sits.
And I. That's true. Sure. Yeah. I'm still.
Like how often are we expected to do this?
And that's an I call area.
He was pretty much like I said, we'll see.
Well, we can say that's. Good for the world, so. You know, we got to compensate. No, that's right. Yeah, right, right. We have to give them that. As long as you're not changing those sides. No. Overtime. We're gonna only because I'm heading to that hurt my hurricane, and I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna. So when those live, I'm gonna. The door is closed. Down there, you know, there's money and stuff. And stay. Oh, yeah, he went. Out here, the way down there was a sheet of trees down there. And I said, I'll be there Sunday. And, I haven't seen him in 20 years. So, I said, I'm right down, well, he's actually going there because he has another person. He has a tree that he can just make up. I cut the short, contact close, so that was. No, it was main thing. I wanted to let you know. Oh, I'll let the lady know that, inquired about that. I told her what to say. So I kind of called me out. Yeah, but that's fine. The guys got I play and then he had. Yeah, and that's where we'll.
I'm like, isn't it a brand new pen? Oh, I need another one. Maybe I'm writing too much.
I don't think that's possible with something like this.
Yeah. Interesting. Turn in my drink. Get some fruit. I feel bad. I took the last plate. I already had. Did you? Okay. Like, nobody's gonna eat that fruit. I'm gonna take it. I know. Love it. Little Howard. I knew you'd get some donuts.
Yeah. What'd you say?
I asked him why I didn't get donuts earlier, and he's like, because I just ate a sandwich. I mean, two.
That was 3 hours ago.
I know, right?
You're looking too good, huh?
It's funny because we've been on so many interview committees, you know what I mean? I got some like you slip. We learn a lot. We just learn a lot. Like
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Oh, he's very good.
Yep. I took the last food plate. Did you? Bye, thank you. Up for it.
The frog's still hanging around.
I know, it's leaving.
I was watching the news this morning. Hour later, you finally see it. Yeah, you know.
Oh, no, I was good. It's okay. It's okay.
I think it's really fun. It's not, it's really, I don't care.
They're really, concerned about these cars. Well, you know what though? It kept us on time.
Yeah.
Just easily,
I said,
good for you. Good for you.
nobody took that. I'm like, I'm gonna take it.
Yeah,
Take it.
perfect. I'm telling you.
I didn't want to put it waste.
That was a big day. That was a big day. Thank you.
I forgot. We don't put the word. Not let me down.
You know, I wish I could. You know, with, and I put them all in the back of my truck. So another person helped me push my truck to the gas station so I could get gas. And I gassed in the cans. I had to get over this year.
Howard. I don't believe you. Oh.
You know, somebody asked me after, they said, "What are you?" I said, "Well, how old are you?"
That's funny. That's what I am.
You know what else?
Huh.
No matter where you go.
That's funny.
I usually sneeze 3 times, but I don't think I have a third.
I like how everybody's phone is going on now. Funny.
I turned mine off, but it hit dismiss. So alarms supersede that, yeah. So that's what mine was,
I know.
the mine's are not even to.
Yes, back in the day. Yes, yes. I know. And well, so I went, then we do it.
Thank you.
And
It didn't really.
yeah, also, it doesn't seem like
This
that.
is nice.
Especially about cake. Yes.
Almost, I don't want to rush that.
But I think.
No.
No, even I.
The bottle.
Yeah.
It's like.
It's funny because I said, so how much time do you need? And then I looked at her and like, clearly all my kids are. We're just waiting about.
Oh, okay, I'll let him know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
We haven't forgotten about it.
No.
Your Honor, while we're taking, we still have a minute here before we get started, and I just want to, we're going to be ordering in pizza for lunch. The idea is go grab a slice or two and come back in here for a working meeting. By
Right.
that time, you will have heard from all of the candidates, and I want to be really upfront about saying this to you, which is, when you leave here and go over and get pizza, don't talk about the candidates there. Your conversation about the candidates needs to take place here in open session. So I just want to remind you that, this is an open meeting and that's where that conversation will take place. So there will be a temptation, I think, when you get up to go and say, hey, what did you think about so-and-so? Well, that's not the place to do it. So I want you to be aware of that.
Also, to add to it, any member of the public who's here today, we will ask if comments before we grab our pizza.
Is the public allowed to stay for the after?
All of this is open.
It is, okay.
We'll get started in a few moments.
He's Lindsay.
Well, this one's a little more important.
I just love teasing her. It's the same way at school.
I wouldn't even pound my
She's pretty
gavel.
much late for all of our meetings.
Yeah.
Brian makes her do charades.
Ah.
Oh, it's pretty funny. I haven't done that, Brian, recently. Charades.
Although. someone, kind of public, or they didn't want to do it.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
But, later candidates.
yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I did that one too.
Oh my God, Howard. Why? I just never know what's going to come out of your mouth.
I don't think he does either.
Howard, you know, this movie.
You're out of order, get out of here.
Howard. Control piece of this right now. So nice to share.
I was taught to share.
Thank you, sir.
Growing up, yeah, that's gonna be the real- I hate it first.
I like men too, but I'm kind of tired because I was out.
I called you, you didn't have your alarm? Uh,
15 and 16. They're really close. They're like 16 months.
Are they close? Close, that's good.
Yeah, very close. They completely different. But they're like each other's best friends. They'll even say like, she's my favorite person.
Awesome.
I'm not
That's
too
awesome.
sensitive. They were best friends.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest. I think it is, because they don't really fight or anything.
Right.
Oh,
really?
A lot of sisters, especially the age, are like sharing each other's clothes. Yeah, that's awesome.
Like last night, we went and saw this movie, Greatest Shakespeare. And so like, one was like, I don't want to go down to my room, but I'm gonna sleep upstairs with sis. And I was like, okay. So she went up and slept in her place. What was the movie? We saw like. It's not a horror, it's just a mind,
Oh.
scary one. It's not like gory.
Right. Right.
I was like, okay, whatever. I
I was 7 when I saw Jonas.
was
Scared.
And it probably affects you now, yeah?
No, it doesn't now, because that's not, I see it like all the blood. And then when I was 19, I was living alone in an apartment, and I saw Halloween, small. That was one scene that scared me. And now.
Was it the scene where the knight went to the bed and got the guy?
She was. Something with her. No, this, no. It was, no, she was, was she Halloween?
Jamie Curtis was.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
This was Halloween.
Yeah, this was.
Anyway, she was living with some of my aunt's wives, and it's like, holidays are right, and when they show, yeah. And that's, I freaked out, I left the theater, I'm like, you can stay for the rest of the movie, I'll hold the car.
Yeah. Yeah, one. I just want to cry. And the other one, like,
Yeah.
literally couldn't even watch it. She was just on her phone. She's like, I can't even do it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like over there, like, this is kind of funny.
Yeah,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
When you're older,
right,
you're just
right.
like, whatever.
Right.
I know this mistake, it doesn't matter.
So I saw Halloween, I wanted to stop that scene again, and I could still. Wait, what was it?
That's good. It's your game.
Yeah.
Yeah. These kids.
Just movies.
They want to know these things.
Yeah, sure, right. I would know.
I really didn't like this, but when I was growing up, my first school, we met Cool.
Yeah. Did you pop?
We would stay up on Saturday night. No, it wasn't. It was before.
Did you ever see the sixth exercise? You're sitting at the end of our row. One time. Just to get the audience, like, to jolt. And like the camera was panning around, like. Just to get your attention, everybody.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Right.
The drum, you know.
That was a good movie because I didn't realize until the end. I'm like,
Me too. I didn't even talk to him. That was so
but nobody ever answered it.
right,
Because the next time I watched it, right, nobody ever answered it.
and that's just it. You want to go back then and watch it and you realize that, wait.
Every time we go back and watch a movie.
Oh, you're right.
But this was such a surprise.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it.
The rain shot off
Yeah,
and roll,
yeah.
and then that's when I was like.
It was great. It's been getting out for that. You know.
Yeah. And you can see, I see. Yeah, that was a really good movie.
Yeah, those are the kind of, like,
I don't know, more of a mystery person, which I've been doing this for.
I didn't realize.
Because it was such a surprise. Yeah.
How would you be able to, we can't make a decision today.
Maybe technically, I guess we advertise this, but I don't think we should.
Not anymore.
Yeah. And then they show you.
Greg, do you want to go get Dave?
There was a new thing. Ann Arbor's the closest one, but we had to go get those because they had a nerd one, a Rice Krispie. This one was not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did, and they come in a box like this because they're like $10.
Oh,
It lasts like the week. Sorry, guys.
And I'd like to introduce Michael Hall.
All right, so just to get us started, up here seated is our village council plus our clerk and then staff member Vicky. She's also going to be the timekeeper today. Vicky is going to be. The questions are complex, so there's a couple of them per category, but we're asking to keep the responses to 4 minutes. Vicky will show you the yellow card when you're about 30 seconds left, so you kind of know in terms of time that you should start wrapping the question up. When she gives you the red card, just kind of finish where you're at, and then we'll move on to the next section. Also seated in front of you are candidates for either village trustee or village president. We wanted to make sure, since we're so close to an election, that we were bringing everyone to the table that we're needing to be a part of this decision.
Great.
So, okay. All right, to get us started today, I'm going to ask you to give an introduction. Please summarize your professional experience, education, and training, focusing on those parts of your background that are most relevant to the position of Dundee Village Manager.
Great. Well, good morning. Thank you for having me today. My name is Mike Hoffmeister. I currently serve as the Residential Services Director for the Charter Township of Ypsilanti. Residential services is a very vague term, but it's All the services that we offer to our residents, including curbside services, all our trash and recycling contracts, environmental services, which is stormwater, things like that, parks and grounds, building operations, fleet, recreation, and golf. I've been there since 2019. Originally born and raised in Plymouth, Michigan, and prior to serving in Ypsilanti Township, I was in Indianapolis for the city of Fishers, now city of Fishers. It used to be town of Fishers, as a recreation program coordinator, and then with the city of Noblesville as an assistant director of parks and recreation. So my background is the parks and recreation and golf world, but I've gained overarching government experience through my current role as the residential services director in Ypsilanti Township. I went to school at Bowling Green State University for sport management. I was going to go be an athletic director and sell, box seats for the Red Wings, and made a slight turn to local government when I realized how much I enjoyed it. So that's where my path changed there a little bit. Additionally, and extracurricularly, I serve as the MParks Foundation Board President. MParks is a nonprofit that serves parks and recreation agencies throughout the state of Michigan. I also serve on WARMA, which is the Washtenaw Regional Recycling Management Authority. It's a conglomeration of municipal partners in Washtenaw County that help influence change with recycling and trash collection in Washtenaw County. And then additionally, I serve a National Recreation Park Association as an accreditation visitor. So agencies and Parks and Rec departments can go be accredited through standards, and I help go audit Parks and Rec departments throughout the country. And then I also serve on the conference program committee, where I help create and determine education sessions at National Parks and Rec Conference. So that's my experience in a nutshell. And again, thanks for having me.
Okay, we'll begin your questions with Trustee Howard.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for being here. Could you please describe a time when you handled a crisis? How do you approach leading and managing during such a time? How do you respond when you or a member of your team has made a mistake or a poor decision, particularly one that is very visible?
Sure. An experience where I've had a crisis, a mini crisis actually happened yesterday. We're currently going through a recycle cart rollout for all of our residents in Ypsilanti Township. We rolled out trash carts a couple years ago. Now we're rolling out recycle carts. We have about 15,000 service units in Ypsilanti Township, and we have a number of people who are going to want smaller carts. So we're giving everyone 96-gallon carts. There are some people that don't have the size in their garage or whatnot, and they want smaller carts. We're currently working with our hauler, and the hauler yesterday says, I'm sorry, we're not going to allow swaps. Well, the whole plan was to allow swaps to our residents. So I had to adjust swiftly and quickly with the individual that's going through our A&D for our recycle carts. And I swapped about 150 of the 96s to the 64s at the last minute when our rollout starts Monday. So that was a little bit tough to hear from our hauler when they said they couldn't swap when the whole plan was to swap. So we had to adjust on the fly. I think a leader's response should be calm, cool, and collected, whether you're in a public setting or a private setting. Reacting dramatically or I don't know what the right word is, but staying calm and cool and collected allows the people around you to realize everything's under control. There's no reason to respond that way. And I think doing that allows your staff and the residents and other department heads around you see that everything will be fine. It'll all get figured out at the end of the day. Everything always does. So could you repeat the last part?
Sure. How do you respond when you or a member of your team has made a mistake or a poor decision, particularly one that is very visible?
Sure. Another example is one of our department heads made a comment publicly at one of our Board of Trustees meetings, and it was a very visible slip up by that department head. And it was important for me to pull him aside after the meeting and teach him and explain to him why the Board of Trustees might have taken what he said a different way than what was actually intended. So being able to teach and coach your staff in a setting like that in a private way helps your staff gain experience or educational opportunities through just private discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
The village manager must communicate with people in the organization and the community. What is your greatest strength when it comes to communication, and how do you communicate bad or disappointing news?
I think it's being transparent, regardless of good or bad news, being transparent with the residents, being transparent with the council or the board of trustees, being transparent with the staff about everything that's going on, utilizing your communication staff, if you have one, through press release, through social media, being transparent about what's going on is incredibly important. And it might be tough news to hear, but I think communicating tough news is important because it's being transparent. And, you know, sometimes tough conversations have to be had with residents. Sometimes tough conversations have to be had with trustees or councilmen and women or your staff. And I think just being honest with them about why that decision is being made or why that decision and all the facts that led to that decision, it's incredibly important to be transparent. Currently, we're going through a rebrand of Ypsilanti Township, and we're working on hiring a communications staff because that's something we don't do well at Ypsilanti Township is we don't communicate well through press release, through social media. I think being ahead of in front of our residents, not being more proactive than reactive so that our residents know ahead of time rather than reacting to what has already happened is incredibly important.
Thank you.
Mike, I'm going to ask the next. There's going to be 3 questions here. So the village has experienced significant turnover recently, and key staff positions are vacant. How will you go about rebuilding the organization? I stumbled on that. Let me ask that again. How would you go about rebuilding the organization? What steps would you take to attract and retain team members? And can you tell us about a time when you had someone on your team whose underperformance did not improve to a satisfactory level?
Great. So I think the steps to rebuild the staff, we're seeing turnover also. I think the workforce is, everyone's feeling workforce issues, whether it be seasonal or part-time employees. I think rebuilding is incredibly important. And as a leader, you try and put people around you that are better than you, that know more than you, to educate me, because I don't know everything about everything. I want to bring people in that know more than I do so that I can learn as well. I think it's important to bring the right people in through using MParks has career boards, Amy Cell, GovHR. There are places out there that help recruit. And I think utilizing the resources around you and not just relying on myself or our team to do it ourselves. There are tools that can help us do that. And then when you get those people in, I think you gotta keep them by creating a great culture in the organization. So it's being, I mean, this sounds kind of simple, but it's being nice to everyone. Everyone's on edge right now just because of all the things that are going on in the world. And I think we just all need to be nicer to one another. And that includes in the workplace, and that includes building a culture of professionalism in the workplace and building relationships with your colleagues and your coworkers and the people that work for you, and getting to know them on a personal level as well, so that they know that you care. And so, and something we're doing currently in Ypsilanti Township is we're doing a health initiative for our employees. So it's a scorekeeping system where people get go on a walk and they get 20 points, and they go to the doctor and they get 50 points, and they go to the dentist and they get 50 points. And at the end of the day, based on the number of points you have, you get a little bit of a bonus. That's something that shows that your employer cares about your health, that cares about your well-being, and cares that you're here working with us. So I think leading and keeping people in the workplace is incredibly important, so you don't have to go through that turnover. Every leader has to go through employees that underperform. Hopefully there are checks and balances in place through human resources, like annual evaluations, where those things can be evaluated every year. But as a leader, you shouldn't just be waiting for that 1-year evaluation. You should be doing it as time goes on. As I mentioned in the previous question, you should have that conversation immediately with the person or the employee that's underperforming, so that they know right then and there, so it doesn't catch them off guard later down the road. I am all about informing employees of any particular mistakes or misconceptions, or sometimes people hear things that were said one way that weren't meant that way. And so I think getting people to understand that communication is important, and ensuring that underperforming employees are just talked to transparently and coached and taught throughout their time at their employer.
Thank you.
Trustee So.
Morning.
Morning.
Describe your past experiences with strategic planning and goal setting, and how would you use that experience for a strategic agenda for the village of Dundee?
Sure. We're actually going through, or we just opened an RFP for a master plan at Ypsilanti Township. It's our Parks and Recreation master planning nonetheless. Putting an RFP for a master plan is exciting because it gives your organization or your local government agency an opportunity to look forward and to plan ahead and to goal set and to really plan out the next 5 or 10 years of what your major improvements are going to be, or what your organizational structure is going to be if it's going to change. I think it's also imperative that you use the right consultant, that you use the right planning staff. I know different agencies do it different ways, but ensuring that the right people are in the right spots to do a proper evaluation of your organization is incredibly important in the strategic planning process. It's also incredibly important to get feedback from all the people involved: residents, business owners, park commission, planning commission, city council, board of trustees. Everyone should be involved in that strategic planning process to get the entire picture. It's not just me or you or the planning director who thinks or knows what's best for our community. It's incredibly important to get feedback from residents and business owners and everyone involved so that it can be clearly understood as to what the organization's goals and strategies are going forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'd also like to know, what are the key attributes of effective council manager relations? What will you do to improve your local government skills? And what have you learned about the village of Dundee since applying for the job?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important as a leader in a local agency that you have a relationship with your city council, village council, board of trustees. And it doesn't have to be, I've known some leaders in the past who only talked or only communicated at a council meeting or a board meeting, and that's just inefficient. In the township world, we have 3 elected officials in the building. So we have our township supervisor, whom I report to, township clerk, and township treasurer, who are all full-time elected officials in our building day to day. So I have regular conversations with them. Not every organization is like that. So I would have to go out of my way to establish relationships with all council members to make sure we build the rapport so know what's going on. Sometimes the memo and the board packet and the contract isn't enough. We need to have a conversation. We need to have a better understanding of what this is actually for and what that number means and what that number means. Also, always being willing to meet. There's no reason not to meet and have a conversation before coming into a public setting or a public meeting. I think being transparent with your council or board of trustees is incredibly important, and informing them also, because staff are here day to day. Council and board of trustees members sometimes are not. And so making sure they're always informed on things. Can you repeat the second part? I'm sorry.
What will you do to improve your local government management skills? And what have you learned about the village of Dundee since applying for this?
I've been fortunate with the Ypsilanti Township to gain overarching government experience. I mentioned before, I was just a Parks and Recreation Assistant Director, where I solely worked inside that department. I've learned a ton at Ypsilanti Township through not just my departments, through all the other departments, but I still have a lot to learn. I'm not going to lie, I have a lot to learn about planning and zoning and code enforcement and some of the things that I'm not always involved in. So and even if I was involved in those things, there's always progress to be made. Even if as a city manager who may have been serving for 20 years, it's always changing. The best practices and the standards are changing, and it's best to keep up with those by educating yourself through professional development opportunities, whether it's Michigan Townships, ICMA, there's conferences and things you can continue to learn and grow at. Since applying, I've done a lot of research through your website, through a number of other websites, looked at the budget, looked at the master plan, and I, you know, I love historic downtowns. The community I used to work for in the city of Noblesville had a historic downtown, and keeping the small town feel while still building your community is incredibly important. I'm sure a lot of people in the community love the historic downtown, and don't want it touched. But growth is necessary sometimes too, whether that's engaging your residents through events in your historic downtown or using the river rather than it be a barrier. So, I'm very excited about the opportunity, and I think, the village, through the research I've done, is doing great things through all the departments I can see.
Dundee has experienced significant population and economic growth in recent years. What experience have you had in balancing demands for quality of life projects against needed investments in aging infrastructure? How will you provide leadership in the area of finance, particularly in communicating with the council and residents about fiscal issues?
Sure. As I mentioned before, I think communicating with council, being transparent is incredibly important. There's always issues at local government, whether it's making big decisions, whether a road should be improved, whether another decision must be made. I think being transparent with city council, village council, board of trustees, et cetera, is incredibly important to educate the council. We too in Ypsi Township are having to make decisions. Ypsi Township has been through a recession where they lost big manufacturing plants where their taxable value went substantially down. And Ypsi Township had to become very conservative almost overnight because of the decisions that were made. This was before my time. People had to be laid off. It was very tough to navigate for Ypsilanti Township. We still remain conservative for that reason, because we've been through it and we don't want to have to go through it again. So I think being transparent about what issues are at hand and what foresight is coming. We also rely on our auditor. We rely on some of our other folks to help project what's coming. Not everyone can project perfectly what's coming financially or in the economy, but I think we can do the best we can using the tools and resources that we have around us. Aging infrastructure is another incredibly important. I think every local community is seeing aging infrastructure, but I also think there is an influx of funds through ARPA, MDNR state grants. There's federal and state grant dollars out there that are easy to get with the right application. And so we rely heavily on grants so that we're not hitting our own budgets or our general fund for those funds either. So I think we've taken the opportunity to use those grant dollars, whether it's federally or in the state or even through the county, to help us upgrade our infrastructure, and then use our township dollars through millages and general fund to help in other areas.
One follow-up.
Sure.
What financial management software are you skilled in using?
We use BS&A at Ypsi Township.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Good morning, Mr. Hoffmeister. What experience do you have in creating a local and regional partnerships? And what are the characteristics that contribute to successful partnerships?
Sure. I think a partnership is exactly that. It's a partnership. Similar to Dundee, Ypsilanti Township has Ypsi City and Ypsi Township, and Ypsi Township is very much surrounds the city of Ypsilanti. During my research, I noticed there's Dundee and there's Dundee Township. And so my understanding is there has to be some sort of partnership there, whether it's shared services of fire and police, or it's shared road services, or whatever it is. A partnership should be a true partnership. I mentioned previously that I serve on WARMA, which is a regional recycling group. That's another partnership, regional partnership within Washtenaw County that currently exists. And there has to be, in any sort of partnership, there has to be a benefit of some sort to every organization that's a part of that partnership. And so ensuring there's a benefit, but ensuring that one particular agency or organization's not getting the brunt of the lift or the financial ask or whatever it may be. I think it being fair across the board whether it's financial or staff load or workload or what have you. Additionally, in Indiana, there was a group of Hamilton County Parks Association. All the parks departments in Hamilton County came together and created a nonprofit organization where it benefited all of us to collaborate, network, and create new ideas off of one another. So I think these partnerships can be formal, or they can be informal through a formal nonprofit or not. So I think establishing partnerships in your local agency is incredibly important. And it's not just intergovernmental partnerships either. It can be partnerships with nonprofits. It could be partnerships with local businesses in town. And I think a local government should be open to any and all opportunities to partner with local partners.
Thank you.
Morning, sir. The question is, where would you place yourself on a spectrum that ranges from task-oriented to people-oriented? And what techniques do you use to handle conflict?
I would say task versus people. I think when you're a leader in a local government agency, you have to be both. And that might be the easy road, but as a residential services director, I'm interacting with residents. I want to sit down with them. I want to hear what's going on. I want to talk about their issues and what they're seeing, because I don't see everything. So I think you have to listen and you have to be a people person, but also you have to manage projects and you have to prioritize your tasks. Right now we've got 4 or 5 construction projects that I'm trying to manage. So I think managing both the people side of it and the task side of it is just something that has to happen as a leader in a local government agency. Handling conflict is also something that must be handled, whether it's conflict from a resident, whether it's conflict from a staff person. I think what's most important as a leader is listening, and not listening to respond, but listening to understand, so that you actually know what's going on in that person's thought process or what is actually happening. A lot of people these days, I think, listen to just respond. They're not actually listening. And so when I sit down with a person, when I sit down with a resident, it's understanding what they're going through, and it's listening to what's happening in their life, because everyone's different and everyone has something going on. And I think it's important to manage conflict simply by listening and understanding.
I have one follow-up question. Now, when you say about communication being open and everything, would that be an open door to the residents, the staff,
Absolutely.
and the council?
Absolutely. Of course. Yes. Regardless of the population size that you have in a local government entity, a leader should be always available, should be transparent, doors open. I would never want to turn anyone away from a meeting or a conversation unless I'm preoccupied, of course. But there should always be an open line of communication with your residents, whether it's a phone call and it's an email. And something I really value in what I do is regardless of who calls me or who emails me, I will always give a response back. It's not going to wait too long. It's going to get a response. And it's important to know that your leadership at your local government is there and is listening and is responding and paying attention to what's going on. So always being available is incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning.
Morning.
Describe a time when you faced an ethical dilemma. How was the situation resolved? Also, describe a time when you found it necessary to put the public interest ahead of your personal interest.
Sure. I think an ethical dilemma. Okay, so this kind of hits both questions. Well, not really. So there was an individual who used to work for Ypsi Township who was a crew leader. He had been there for 15, 20 years. He was a great employee, worked hard, and he was in our Parks and Grounds department. But the job description required that individual to pass the pesticide license, 3A and 3B. We had helped him get training. We had helped him get coaching to help pass that test. We had allowed him to take the test 2 or 3 times. He just could not pass it. We also have unions in Ypsi Township, multiple unions that I oversee also. And that individual was a union employee. So there was a certain level of standard for that particular employee as well. The ethical and moral decision was he can't pass the test. We've tried, we've helped. What's next? So we worked closely with human resources, and ultimately the decision was made to terminate the employee because he could not pass the test, which was required by the job description, which was held in the union contract. That was a tough decision to make. Regardless of the tenure that he had, regardless of the work that he had put in, we had to let him go because he just couldn't pass the test. And that was a very tough day because he had put his heart and soul into that organization, into his time there. Also, I take pride in doing what's right. Being in local government as a leader, you are very much involved in the day-to-day operations, but also involved in sometimes the political side. You're getting pressure from different people and getting pressure from, as I mentioned, in Ypsi Township, there are 3 elected officials in the building. So as you can imagine, I'm sometimes getting all of them at me at one time. And sometimes, I'll use the treasurer as an example. He'll come in and ask that we go do something. And that something might be in the best interest of himself, or it might be in the best interest of what might make him look good. But what the right thing to do is, should I really allocate township resources to that one thing? Because is it in the best interest of myself or him, or is it the best interest of the resident? And so I think when you're a leader of an agency, of a local government, I think you're challenged with those decisions more often than you might realize, because township governments or village governments or city governments are using resident taxpayer dollars, and you have to be smart with using those taxpayer dollars. And is it in the best interest of using the residents' taxpayer dollars for this task for the residents, or is it using it for this task for personal opinion? So hopefully that answers your question there.
So I've got a 3-part question. How would you handle complaints from the public? What do you get excited about when it comes to municipal management? What can we expect to hear if you were in this job for the next 2 years? At the end of those first 2 years, what would we expect to hear from the community about the job that you're doing and what's been done in the village?
Okay, first, handling complaints. We get, as I'm sure you all do as well, Ypsi Township with a large resident base, we get lots of complaints also. Whether it's trash collection or it's the park slide's broken. It goes back to the people conversation. It's listening, it's understanding, and it's responding. It's not just pushing them off to the side. It's not just ignoring, but it's listening, it's asking questions, and it's passing it to the correct staff person that might be able to handle the situation. If that situation is not handled, then sometimes I just have to go out and handle it myself. Or I might need to push the employee or push this department or a little bit to handle those complaints. Sometimes there might be a complaint from a resident, and our staff might disagree with that complaint. But regardless of that, we still have to respond, and we still have to understand, and we still have to take a look at it. And then I think always following up with the resident that complained is important, so they know that it's been handled. Or I call them back and tell them, well, that's not necessarily the case. This is what actually happened, or this is what we saw. So I think being transparent, again, is incredibly important. What excites me about municipal government, it's interacting with the people. It's going to events. I love going. I'm a Parks and Rec person. I through events, 4th of July festivals, parades, street dances, duck races is a great thing for the river. That excites me because it brings the community together. Sometimes local government gets a bad stigma of forms and policies and not getting phone calls back. And I think what we did a great job of in Noblesville was we brought the community together through events. And that's something that local government can do also, is bring the community together and play. Like it's a really cool place to live and to work, but it's also a really cool place to play. And so using a beautiful downtown is a great place to play. And then 2 years from now, I'm hoping, and I would hope to hear resident feedback. I would hope to hear that we're doing a good job. I would hope to hear that our responsiveness is up with whatever issues might be going on. I would hope that any deferred maintenance is starting that process of getting fixed. Deferred maintenance takes a long time. Any ARPA funds should be used. I think improvements to parks, playgrounds, roads, old buildings, everything has a lifetime and a lifespan. And I think understanding what that lifespan is and understanding what priorities there are and understanding what fixes have been made and what changes may have been made. And if I got this role, I wouldn't come in and just change things to change things. I would be observant and I would listen and I would build relationships with residents and get to know them and get to know staff and get to know council members. And so 2 years is about as long as it takes to get acclimated with a leadership role in the government. So those are the things I would hope to hear.
In terms of economic development, what challenges do you think Dundee will face during the next decade? What projects should be considered to address these challenges while ensuring Dundee retains the small town atmosphere it is known for?
And that's a great question because that's something we dealt with in the city of Noblesville. Albeit I was a Parks and Rec guy and I didn't deal with a ton of it, but the city of Noblesville had a historic downtown. They were also growing exponentially outside of their historic downtown. And so there is a balance between keeping that historic downtown and driving economic development. And it sounds like we're having that conversation here and now, and you guys are seeing it here and now. I think preservation of historic districts and preservation of historic downtowns is incredibly important. And that also comes to potentially rezoning districts or rezoning parts of town that should be established for certain kinds of use. I know in Noblesville, we preserved our downtown and we also designed, the city designed buildings that were built in the historic downtown, not disturbing the facades and the beautiful downtown that they had, but building the new buildings to fit within that look. So economic development can happen within historic downtowns, but you want to make sure it still fits within that downtown. You're not disturbing what exists. I will still remember to this day, as it relates to historic downtowns, we had bricks with stars on them, and it was the biggest drama in the world because they didn't want the bricks taken out. The bricks with stars did not want to be taken out because that was what downtown was. And so listening to your residents and making sure that the things that mean downtown Dundee to the residents are the things that should mean downtown Dundee to the government as well. And I think you can build economic development and you can build buildings and you can build new opportunities for tax growth within a downtown while it doesn't change the look of the downtown.
Okay, so now what questions do you have for us?
What would be the top priorities, goals, or expectations for the new village manager?
So as we have told past candidates, the expectation is when you say your start date is ready, our interim manager will be done the day before. So you would have to hit the ground running. With the fact that we have some staff openings, you would have to look at the organizational structure so we can get key people into key places in accordance with what you feel, a good staffing plan is. We have some road projects that have been put off that we need to make sure are taken care of. And of course, we want to make sure that we balance and be fiscally responsible in the process.
What are some challenges that you're seeing currently in the village, or some challenges that I might see if hired? Aside from the staffing and.
Well, I mentioned infrastructure. We have several road projects that are going to be quite expensive. And so we need to figure out a way to pay for these road projects. What the best mix of funding would be, whether it be Act 51 money and maybe some tax increase if necessary, special assessments is something that we do here, but it's not anything that anybody likes. And that's one of our biggest problems. And just a lot of the things that came up within what our questions were, it's just balancing the historic Dundee while making sure that we're still viable and relative Anything to add, anyone?
You did speak of grants and funds and other entities. Now, with what President Hickey was saying about our roads and infrastructure, could you kind of give us just a brief idea of what ones you would try to allocate from?
Well, I think it depends on the project as well. There's TAP grants out there. We're currently using a TAP grant with MDOT.
I don't know that we can, I don't think that we can ask that since we didn't ask any of the other.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that, Mike. I apologize.
No, not.
I just don't want it to be unfair.
I was just curious. about-
But if you have any other challenges that you would like to share, since that was the question that's on the table from the candidate. Okay, hearing none, did you have any further questions?
I guess the last question I'll ask is, what's your favorite part of Dundee, living here, working here, playing here? And you don't all have to answer because it could take a while, but I'd like to just know a little bit what you all love about it.
Well, I can say that I've lived here my whole life. And one of the things that they say is it takes a village. A lot of people say it takes a village because we are a community unlike other communities. If one person needs help, then we all pitch in. Last weekend that there was a fire in an apartment complex that had 4 units. And the last I heard that the person that collecting donations was running out of room. Because that's the kind of village that we are. We take care of our own. And it truly does take a village, and we all participate in making sure that everybody in this community is thriving.
I agree. It's definitely the people
The
in the
people.
village. We all have different opinions, different perspectives, but we all definitely come help each other when it's needed. And I think people just want to be heard.
Yep.
Our family moved here from Britain. And one of the reasons, the main reason we moved here was because of the school system. The school system was far ahead of Britain in offering college-related courses and stuff to our kids. So we've been here 12 years now and have no regret about moving to Dundee.
Great.
I also think we do a really great job in this village with community events. The DDA is very much involved in planning, in the DABA organization, and planning great events in our downtown to get young families and, older people, everyone involved, so.
Even though Dundee has grown exponentially in the last 5 to 10 years, it's managed to retain its small town feel. When you walk into the bank and they know you by name. You go to the grocery store, the cash registers know you. Everybody knows you when you walk in. It's just a small town atmosphere that has boomed in the past 5 to 10 years. We've doubled our population, but we've retained that feeling. And I think a lot of that is because we started out as a farm-based community, and we still have the farmer mentality going in this community. And, the old pitch a barn, everybody pitches in. That's the atmosphere here in this town.
As probably the newest person to Dundee here, I'll say just a different perspective is just the walkability of the village. That's something I really like, especially having always lived in places where I could walk to most anywhere I wanted to get. I like that Dundee does have that feel that if it's a nice enough day and there's an event going on, or I need to run to the store, I can just take a nice little walk, enjoy the views, maybe talk to a couple people.
Great.
Yeah, I really enjoy the sense of community. I think a lot of people have said something like that. The sense of community and support of each other. And so many people are just kind and approachable. I mean, it's a really nice place to live.
I've lived here all my life, and it's a safe community. We have decent police force, nice schools, and everybody pitches in to help one another. And it's just a wonderful place. Dundee's is Southeastern Michigan's best kept secret.
Any other questions? So the final closing question that I have for you today is, what is your vision for the village of Dundee 5 years from now? And how do you fit into that vision?
It's a great question. I think hearing what I'm hearing, I think the next 5 years could be huge. Huge with growth, huge with population growth, whether it's economic development, business-wise, residents coming to Dundee. It sounds like the schools are outstanding. I think the next 5 years could bring a lot of infrastructure upgrades. They would bring new business to town, and while keeping the feel of historic Dundee intact. I think I would fit into that in a way that provides high energy leadership, someone that is always there, someone that is transparent with residents, staff, and council members. And you know, I think 5 years is a long time to plan, but I also think 5 years goes by very fast, and things change as well. And you know, it sounds like big things are happening in Dundee, and that's exciting for me to hear, because it sounds like a great opportunity for whoever takes this role. And but like I said, I think I fit into that with a strong leader, with a transparent leader, and someone that's always available to residents, leading the way.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do this afternoon is invite anyone from the public to come up and make comments on any of our candidates that we have interviewed this morning. Come on up to the podium. Then, if you don't mind. It is.
My leaves are still sitting on my lawn. I'm sure yours are still sitting on your lawn. So thanks for being here today. I guess if I had a whiteboard and I could write on there what I'd be looking for or whatever. In my mind, partnership with the township. You know, I mean, to me, that's a really big issue. You know, be it fire department, police department, whatever. To me, that's how could they deal with that? Grant experience, to me, grant experience, be it the sewers, the sidewalks, my street on Dunham, to me, that would be a big one on there. Parks and Rec, to me, is huge. The soul of the community is us living in tandem with each other. And to me, we could be famous for Parks and Rec if we do this right, and in conjunction with the DDA and everything. So that would be a big issue for me. I was surprised, nobody brought up about the vacancies in downtown. I mean, that's a huge issue. What will this person be able to bring to the table to help find us ways to fill up the downtown? Because again, you got to have something to walk to be a part of it. And how could they help in that as far as what's going on? I guess you can't ask it, but where are the candidates going to live? Are they going to move to the community? Are they not going to move to the community? Where are they going to live? That comes in forefront in my mind. And then I guess lastly is their cheerleader status. You know, internet, going to events, you know, getting our names in the newspaper, you know, how they can be a cheerleader to our community is important as well. So that if I had my little wipe-off boards, that's what would be on my wipe-off boards. So appreciate it.
Any other comments?
You got them all.
All right. Thank you, Denny. Appreciate it. Anyone else?
For those who don't know me, I'm Dave Malmquist, and I live at 862 Bradford Drive over there in Gulf Ridge. And a little bit of background, I and my late wife moved here 5 years ago from Tecumseh. And when we lived there for 30 years, I was on city council for 2 terms and 22 years on the planning commission. And you've recently appointed me to the planning commission here. So I liked 2 thoughts. I liked candidate number 1 and candidate number 4. If you could take the age and experience of candidate 1 and mesh it with candidate number 4, who has the youth and enthusiasm, you'd have a dynamic person. The other thing I want to leave you with is if you cannot reach a total quorum on any of the 4 candidates, start the process over. We did this in Tecumseh. I was on council when we hired the current city manager, Dan Swallow. And it took quite a bit of effort to find him, or at least he as the candidate. And it's worked out really well for Tecumseh. And I keep saying for people here in Dundee, look at Tecumseh. They've done a lot to that town, and you can do the same. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to comment today? Okay, so,
One is not here yet.
okay.
Oh.
Okay, so we're gonna have a, okay, we're gonna have a working lunch, so go grab yourself some pizza and come right back and begin our discussion.